They won't tell you directly, but your presence unsettles them. Not because you're loud, not because you command attention, but because you don't flinch. You see everything. You absorb every detail. And yet you remain unmoved. That stillness, that calm, they can't comprehend it. Because in a world trained to overreact, your silence is an act of rebellion. They don't fear your anger. They fear your restraint. They don't dread your voice. They dread your unreadability. You're building something behind your eyes. A kind of fortress. Not of stone, but of steel. Mental steel. Tempered in solitude, sharpened in rejection, forged in silence. This world is addicted to noise. It celebrates emotional chaos. It rewards those who overshare, who overspeak, who overreact. But you move like a shadow with intent. You calculate. You wait. You strike only when it serves the mission. This is not about optimism. This is not about healing. This is about power. Mental power. And it terrifies those who have none. They don't know how to handle the one who can endure everything and reveal nothing, who smiles without warmth, who listens without agreeing, who walks through fire with a gaze of ice. They whisper, something's off. They're right. Something is. You're not part of their emotional machinery. You've stepped outside the cycle, and that's the first principle of dominance: emotional disobedience. Because this world thrives on reactions. It feeds on the triggered. If they can rattle your mind, they can reroute your life. So you train yourself to be untouchable. No begging, no explaining, no defending. You move with the discipline of a monk and the vision of a conqueror. No audience, no applause, just execution. And when the world demands your vulnerability, you refuse. Not because you're afraid, but because you understand this truth. Every emotion you share is a blueprint to your control. They want access. You give them mystery. They want reaction. You give them silence. Let them guess. Let them spiral in the uncertainty. Your indifference is a mirror that forces them to see their own emotional dependence. They can't predict you. They can't guilt you. They can't own you. That makes you dangerous. A strong mind doesn't collapse under pain. It repurposes it. Pain becomes fuel. Failure becomes insight. Loneliness becomes leverage. Everyone suffers, but not everyone uses suffering correctly. Most people run from pain. They drown it in pleasure, in distraction, in validation. But you face it. You study it. You strip it down to its source and use it as a hammer to shape your next form. You do not retreat. You do not complain. You endure and evolve. Pain teaches. If you're willing to listen, it shows you every flaw in your armor. And once you reinforce those cracks, you become a creature that no ordinary force can fracture. But emotional power is only one layer. The next is intellectual clarity. The world praises ignorance in disguise, moralism without understanding, kindness without discernment, opinion without depth. You study the world not to belong to it, but to outmaneuver it. Most people seek comforting knowledge books that tell them what they want to hear. You seek dangerous truths, the kind that make the herd uncomfortable. You learn persuasion, not to manipulate, but to resist being manipulated. You learn systems, not to be governed, but to bend them. You learn power, not to abuse, but to avoid submission. They say knowledge is power. Not true. Knowledge is potential. Applied knowledge is power. And most people never apply. They consume. They quote. They repeat. You digest. You integrate. You weaponize. And when they wonder why you're always 2 steps ahead, they'll never consider the hours spent alone, sharpening your edge. This is the cost of clarity: solitude. You lose friends. You lose comfort. You lose illusions. But in return, you gain sovereignty. And that's what they can't stand. Because sovereign men are ungovernable. You don't attach your worth to attention. You don't depend on reassurance. You don't fear absence. You operate in detachment, not disinterest, but deliberate distance. You detach from the outcome. You detach from validation. You detach from identity. You are not your past, not your pain, not your name. You are your will, your code, your mission. And that scares them, because most people are tied to the image in the mirror. They build entire personalities around approval. They die 1,000 deaths trying to preserve an identity that was never truly theirs. But you adapt, you reinvent, you burn what no longer serves. You walk away without a sound, not because you're heartless, but because you're focused. Let them scream. Let them label you. Cold, calculated, distant. Fine. You're not here to be embraced. You're here to be undeniable. Control is not in dominance. Control is in non-dependence. When you can walk away from anything opportunity, comfort, admiration, you own it. And if you can't, it owns you. That's the apex. Not influence. Not wealth. Not followers. But detachment. The ability to lose everything and still remain whole. They will test you. With insults. With absence. With temptation. Let them. Let them provoke. Let them push. Let them pull. You observe. You adjust. You do not kneel. You don't panic when something leaves. You don't chase when someone withdraws. You simply turn and move forward. Because a mind that's free from need is a force of nature. Still, cold, relentless. They won't understand it. And they're not supposed to. You weren't built for their approval. You were built for war. A silent war against distraction, addiction, weakness. Every moment you choose silence over validation, discipline over desire, purpose over popularity, you win. Every time you rise in silence, every time you suffer without a performance, every time you delay gratification and sharpen focus, you ascend, not above others, but above the systems that seek to contain you. Most people lose because they fight for comfort. You win because you fight for clarity. And clarity? It never apologizes. Let them misunderstand you. Let them call you cruel. You are not here to make others feel safe. You are here to build something eternal inside yourself. A kingdom with no visible walls. A mind with no leash. A soul that obeys no external master. That is what terrifies them. Because in a world of shallow attachments and loud desperation, your silence is an earthquake. Your presence is pressure. Your mind untamed, unread, unbroken, is the final threat. You are not the loudest. You are not the kindest. You are not the most liked. You are the one still standing. And that is the definition of power. They will try to break you with things they believe no one can endure. They will try betrayal. They will try shame. They will try love. Because the things that once broke them, those are their weapons now. They assume that since they shattered under affection, so will you. That since they crumbled under abandonment, so will you. That since they needed to be seen, heard, validated, you must need it too. But what they don't understand is that you've already suffered more than they can imagine. And you didn't just survive, you used it. You stood in the middle of your personal apocalypse and took notes. You didn't scream. You didn't beg. You didn't ask for a lighter burden. You became heavier. You became sharper. You became sovereign. And now they have nothing left to weaponize. They can't guilt you. They can't seduce you. They can't distract you. Because everything they could use against you, you've already burned, buried, or conquered. This is what emotional sovereignty looks like. You feel pain, but you don't obey it. You feel desire, but you don't chase it. You feel love, but you don't kneel for it. You see through everything. Their motives, their strategies, their illusions. Not because you're cynical, but because you've learned that truth only reveals itself to those who don't flinch. You never declared war on the world. You simply stopped letting it define you. You stopped asking for permission. You stopped waiting to be chosen. You stopped letting emotions pick your path. Now your clarity walks ahead of you like a warning. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to justify it. It's felt, not heard. And when they try to pull you back into the cycle, react, explain, emote, conform you, offer them stillness. Because stillness unsettles them. They see your calm as arrogance, your focus as coldness, your control as threat. And that's fine. You're not here to be digestible. You're here to be undeniable. The disciplined mind doesn't rage. It calculates. It plans. It endures. The disciplined man doesn't rush. He moves when it's time, never before. Not out of fear, not out of impulse. Only when it serves the mission. And if you don't have a mission, build one. Without direction, power rots. Without vision, pain becomes poison. But with a mission, everything becomes fuel. Every betrayal becomes instruction. Every wound becomes blueprints. Every setback becomes positioning. That's what separates the architect from the victim. Victims wait for life to explain itself. Architects use silence to design responses. There's a reason stillness feels unnatural to the masses. It forces reflection. And reflection reveals weakness. Most people would rather drown in noise than face the abyss of their own mind. But not you. You built your mind for solitude, not as a prison, but as a command center. Silence is not your punishment. It's your headquarters. You train in it. You repair in it. You evolve in it. And when you emerge, your moves are clean, brutal, surgical. No warnings. No flinching. Just consequence. People who don't understand power think it's an expression. But real power is in control. Control of attention. Control of time. Control of emotion. Control of response. That's what they fear. Not that you'll explode, but that you won't. That no matter what is said or done or lost, you won't break formation. You won't descend into chaos. You won't start revealing your map. You'll stay locked in. And when it's time to strike, they won't hear it coming. Because your silence wasn't passive. It was aim. You're not frozen. You're calculating. You're not emotionless. You're selective. You don't reveal the whole plan. You reveal the result. And by then, it's too late for them to prepare. Understand this. Power isn't loud. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't argue. It simply demonstrates. Let others argue about right and wrong. Let them cry over fairness. Let them spend their energy trying to convince and convert. You operate on outcome. You observe. You adjust. You execute. And while they're chasing recognition, you're collecting leverage. They want to be praised. You want to be positioned. They want validation. You want strategy. This difference rewires everything. Because while they're playing emotional games, you're rewriting the rules of the arena. You aren't emotional in the storm. You are the storm. You don't warn people anymore. You don't justify your distance. You don't explain your standards. You simply disappear from anything that weakens your edge. They can call it arrogance. They can call it fear. Let them call it whatever helps them sleep. Because at the end of the day, your silence will outlast their noise. And when the crowd disperses, when the cheers die and the distractions fade, you'll still be building. Quietly, relentlessly, alone but not lonely. Because detachment doesn't mean absence of care. It means hierarchy of value. And your mission sits at the top. You don't kill emotion, you command it. You don't erase empathy, you deploy it with precision. But when emotion threatens clarity, you choose clarity. Every time. This is not cruelty. This is sovereignty. A mind that belongs to itself. A man that walks alone not because he must, but because he can. That's the highest form of freedom. To stay, to go, to cut, to build, with no permission required. They will try to pull you into softness, into sentiment, into submission. Not always with force, sometimes with love, sometimes with guilt. But you'll feel it, the pull to react, to comply, to kneel. And you will resist. Not because you hate them, but because you refuse to abandon yourself. You don't seek war, but you won't surrender peace to the weak. You don't start battles, but you'll finish any that reach your doorstep. This is your code, and the code doesn't change to comfort others. You do not bend. You do not explain. You simply live it. Every step, every silence, every sacrifice is made for a mission greater than pleasure. You are not here to be understood. You are here to build something they don't even have the language for. That's what makes you a threat. You speak less. You watch more. Because while they reveal, you record. While they confess, you calculate. While they panic, you prepare. And when their emotions have left them exposed, you're already 2 moves ahead. They'll never know what it's like to be this calm in the chaos. They'll never understand how someone can feel everything yet still move like nothing can touch him. Let them laugh. Let them gossip. Let them watch. Because by the time they see your rise, they won't remember how often they doubted you. They'll only remember the silence and the storm that followed it,